You know, for many adults over 60, these three foods suddenly become terrifying. Bread, rice, and potatoes. Because after hearing words like high blood sugar, or prediabetes, or type 2 diabetes, many people begin feeling like normal meals are disappearing from their lives. Toast suddenly feels dangerous. Rice feels forbidden. Even a baked potato can create anxiety. And honestly, that may be one of the saddest parts of all this. Because food is supposed to feel comforting, not stressful. But here's what most people never realize. The problem is often not the bread, not the rice, and not even the potatoes themselves. The real problem is usually how they're being eaten. Because some combinations may spike blood sugar much faster than people expect, while other combinations may feel surprisingly stable even when eating the exact same foods. And today, I'm going to show you why some adults over 60 experience huge spikes from carbohydrates, why certain healthy foods may still create problems, why bread is often blamed unfairly, and the small eating habits many people say help them feel dramatically more stable, without completely giving up normal life. And later in this video, I'll show you one extremely common breakfast habit that may matter more than eliminating bread entirely. Most people never think about it. And before we continue, I'd really love to ask you something. Which of these foods feels hardest for you to manage right now? Bread, rice, or potatoes? Tell me in the comments below. Because honestly, many people over 60 feel exhausted trying to figure out what's safe to eat anymore. And those conversations help shape future videos here on simple blood sugar. One of the biggest changes many adults notice after 60 is that carbohydrates stop feeling predictable. A sandwich that caused no problems years ago may suddenly leave someone sleepy, foggy, hungry again, or craving sugar an hour later. And that confusion creates fear, because these foods are deeply connected to normal life. Toast at breakfast, rice with dinner, potatoes at family meals. Many retirees grew up eating these foods every single week for decades. So when someone suddenly hears, avoid carbs, it can feel less like nutrition advice and more like losing part of life itself. And honestly, I completely understand why people feel overwhelmed, because nutrition advice online has become incredibly confusing. One person says, never eat bread again. Another says, only eat brown rice. Another says, potatoes are terrible. And after hearing enough conflicting advice, many people stop knowing what to trust. But here's something important most people never hear. Blood sugar spikes are often influenced more by portions, combinations, timing, meal structure, and eating habits than by one single food alone. And surprisingly, some healthy foods may still spike blood sugar much faster than people expect, especially in the morning. And in a few minutes, I'll show you why some supermarket breads marketed as healthy may still digest surprisingly fast. Let's start with bread, because bread may be the single hardest food emotionally for many adults to reduce. Toast in the morning, sandwiches at lunch, garlic bread at dinner. Bread is everywhere, and many people immediately switch to whole wheat, believing the problem is solved. But surprisingly, some supermarket whole wheat breads may digest almost as quickly as white bread, especially heavily processed breads, because some breads marketed as healthy are still highly refined, low in fiber, and designed to be soft and fast digesting. Most people never realize this. They see whole grain on the package and assume the blood sugar response will automatically be gentle. But sometimes it isn't, especially when eaten alone. And honestly, this may be one of the biggest mistakes many adults over 60 make. Toast and jam, toast and orange juice, toast and sweet coffee. Very little protein, very little fiber, very little fat, which often creates much faster glucose absorption. And this is where things get tricky, because people blame the bread itself, when the real issue is often the entire breakfast combination. Something as simple as adding eggs, avocado, and peanut butter, Greek yogurt, or protein beside the bread may dramatically slow things down for many people. And honestly, many adults discover they never needed to completely eliminate bread in the first place. They simply needed to stop eating it in isolation. And here's something else many people over 60 never think about. Speed. Many Americans eat breakfast incredibly fast. Coffee in one hand, toast in the other, rushing through the morning. But eating quickly may sometimes make blood sugar feel even more chaotic. And surprisingly, many people say slowing down at breakfast helped them more than they expected. Not perfection, just slowing things down a little. And if this video is helping you feel a little less afraid of carbohydrates, consider subscribing. Because every week here on Simple Blood Sugar, we talk about practical ways to enjoy familiar foods more safely after 60, without extreme diets, and without confusing food rules. Now let's talk about rice. Because rice creates enormous confusion online. Some people say, never eat rice again. Others say, brown rice fixes everything. But reality is usually much more nuanced than that. And here's something many people never realize. Rice may behave very differently depending on the portion size, what's eaten beside it, or how quickly it's eaten, and even how it's prepared. And surprisingly, some people notice cold rice affects them differently than freshly cooked rice. Most people never hear that because online nutrition advice often oversimplifies everything. But blood sugar responses are rarely simple. And another major issue is portion size. Restaurant rice portions today are often enormous, sometimes enough for 2 or 3 people. And when rice is combined with sugary sauces, the fried foods, sweet drinks, oversized portions, or fast eating, blood sugar may rise much faster than expected. But rice eaten with vegetables, the protein, healthy fats, and slower eating habits may feel completely different for many adults. And honestly, this is why so many people become frustrated, because they blame the rice itself while ignoring the entire eating pattern around it. And this next part surprises many adults over 60. Sometimes the drink beside the rice matters more than the rice itself, especially sugary drinks, sweet tea, soda, juice. Those combinations may create much larger spikes than people realize. Now let's talk about potatoes, because potatoes may actually be one of the most misunderstood foods in blood sugar conversations. Many people hear, potatoes spike blood sugar, and immediately assume potatoes are the enemy. But honestly, the bigger issue is often how they're prepared and what gets eaten beside them. French fries, potato chips, heavy oils, huge restaurant portions. Those are very different from roasted potatoes or boiled potatoes, smaller portions eaten with balanced meals. And surprisingly, some adults over 60 say potatoes affect them less dramatically than highly processed breakfast foods. That shocks many people, because processed foods often digest faster than expected. And honestly, many people become trapped in a cycle of fearing traditional foods, while unknowingly eating ultra-processed, healthy alternatives that may not help much at all. And this is where food marketing becomes very confusing, because some foods marketed as healthy may still create large spikes, especially when heavily processed. That's why meal structure matters so much, not just labels. And honestly, I think this is where many adults begin feeling emotionally exhausted, because suddenly every meal starts feeling complicated. Family dinners feel stressful. Restaurants feel stressful. Even grocery shopping feels stressful. And food was never supposed to feel that way, especially after 60. One of the hardest parts about blood sugar is social eating. Family gatherings, holiday meals, birthday dinners, going out to breakfast. Many people start feeling anxious in situations that once felt comforting. And honestly, that emotional stress matters too, because fear around food can become exhausting over time. But here's the good news. You do not need perfect eating to make meaningful improvements. And honestly, that's something I wish more people understood. Small changes often matter much more than extreme restriction. Things like eating a little slower, reducing portions slightly, adding protein first, walking after meals, drinking water before coffee, or avoiding sugary drinks beside carbohydrates. Those changes may create a much bigger difference than people realize. And many adults say these habits feel much more sustainable long-term, because they still allow life to feel normal. And if you've stayed with me this far, you've probably already realized something important. This video was never really about bread, or rice, or potatoes. It was about learning how to stop fearing food again, because most blood sugar problems after 60 do not come from one bad food. They usually come from patterns repeated over and over again, often without realizing it. And honestly, that realization changes everything. Because once people stop chasing perfection and start focusing on balance instead. Food often becomes much less stressful. Meals feel calmer. Mornings feel calmer. Life feels calmer, and that matters. So now I'd really love to hear from you. Which food feels hardest for you to manage after 60? Bread? Rice? Potatoes? Desserts? Pasta? Tell me in the comments below. Because there's a very good chance your answer becomes part of a future conversation here on Simple Blood Sugar. And if today's video helped you feel even slightly calmer about food, consider subscribing. Because every week, we're working through these meals together, one step at a time. And next time, we're talking about one breakfast drink many adults believe is healthy that may quietly spike blood sugar much faster than expected: orange juice. And honestly, most people never see it coming.